Greetings. This next summary is going to be on the book, The House on Mango Street. Um, Someone requested this, so I'm obliging. And it's actually one of my favorite books to read. I think I've read this book about 13 times, and I'm not tired of it just yet. So there's got to be something to it, right? But like I said, I think I've read this book about 13 times. I've taught it quite a few times, and I've just read it on my own. And every time I read it, I'm able to hear Esperanza's voice very clearly. Each time something hits home for me, based on her experience. I can pretty much empathize with Esperanza's coming of age story. Her playfulness when she's young, her imaginativeness, her powers of observation, the way she watches people and, comments on their behaviors and, their actions and things like that. I can empathize with her first crush on this guy, Sire. I can empathize with her and her sexual assault, her encounters with older men who give young girls unwanted attention, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, like I said, a lot of things that I read in the house on Mango Street hits home for me. Esperanza's desire to find her true place in this world. And I think all of us really, at some point in our lives, we feel that. We feel a need to find our true place in this world, male or female. It doesn't matter. We all want to know where we belong in this world. We all have our story, and a lot of us, our story is being written as I speak, as you listen. Our story is constantly being written. It's not over. It's always developing. And no matter how bad things may be at any given point, just remember your story is still being written. That is not the end. I just thought I'd throw that little tidbit of encouragement out there in case someone may need it. Definitely Esperanza felt pretty low at certain points in her journey. But I think she ended up doing quite well for herself. But anyway, like I said, we all have our story, and the house on Mango Street is Esperanza's story. Now, the author, Sandra Cisneros, she wrote and published this book in the early 80s. It's written from the first person point of view through Esperanza, who's about a 12-year-old girl, Latino girl. She's Mexican American. The story takes place over a period of about a year in Esperanza's life, and she lives in a Chicago ghetto that's populated by mostly Latino people. The character of Esperanza is not too far off from the author, actually. Esperanza's road to self-discovery and self-empowerment through writing and the use of words pretty much mirrors Sandra Cisneros' own journey. So yeah, they're not too far off. As a matter of fact, Esperanza's journey is not too far off from my own. I guess that's why, I can read this book over and over and not get too tired of it. So I like it, and hopefully you have enjoyed it, or I can help you to somewhat understand and maybe appreciate the book a little bit more. So we'll see. Okay, so there are two major themes here in this story, and you can find more, but the two major ones, I think, number one is the power of language. Okay, it's knowing the English language, first of all, and then it's knowing it to get what you want and using the language to express yourself. And that's pretty much what Esperanza is doing. She wants to use the language that she knows to empower herself, to express herself, express the things that she sees and she feels, because she doesn't really get a sense of power from anything else or anyone else. So she uses words as an escape from her unhappiness. The second major theme is finding oneself. Many women in this book are imprisoned by one thing or another, and Esperanza sees this. She makes mental notes about the women who are imprisoned, like I said, and she vows pretty much to be free of any bars, of anything that, that imprisons her and makes her feel like she's anchored down. And basically, again, going back to the language, she finds that power, that freedom in words, in writing. So join me on this journey. This story, The House on Mango Street, is written in what we call vignettes, which are short, quick snapshots of an event or, thoughts that a person is having at any given time. And that's pretty much how the chapters are arranged. And I'll probably refer to them as story one, story two. At first, it may seem that they're disconnected stories. They don't have anything relating them. But on closer look, you'll see that one thing in one chapter kind of leads to something in the next chapter. And maybe 4 or even 10 chapters down the line, something that you read in chapter 2 or a person that you read about in chapter 2 is being spoken about in chapter 10. So at first, they may seem disconnected, but trust me, they're not. You can kind of see all these important events and things that are important to Esperanza come out through these vignettes. And they are all connected. Okay, so the first story is the first chapter, The House on Mango Street. We didn't always live on Mango Street. Before that, we lived on Loomis on the 3rd floor. And before that, we lived on Keeler. Before Keeler, it was Paulina. And before that, I can't remember. But what I remember most is moving a lot. Each time, it seemed there'd be one more of us. By the time we got to Mango Street, we were 6. Mama, Papa, Carlos, Kiki, my sister Nenny, and me. The house on Mango Street is ours, and we don't have to pay rent to anybody, or share the yard with the people downstairs, or be careful not to make too much noise, and there isn't a landlord banging on the ceiling with a broom. But even so, it's not the house we thought we'd get. We had to leave the flat on Loomis quick. The water pipes broke and the landlord wouldn't fix them because the house was too old. We had to leave fast. We were using the washroom next door and carrying water over in empty milk gallons. That's why Mama and Papa looked for a house, and that's why we moved into the house on Mango Street, far away on the other side of town. They always told us that one day we would move into a house, a real house that would be ours for always, so we wouldn't have to move each year. And our house would have running water and pipes that worked. And inside, it would have real stairs. Not hallway stairs, but stairs inside, like the houses on TV. And we'd have a basement and at least 3 washrooms. So when we took a bath, we wouldn't have to tell everybody. Our house would be white with trees around it, a great big yard, and grass growing without a fence. This was the house Papa talked about when he held the lottery ticket. And this was the house Mama dreamed up in the story she told us before we went to bed. It's so funny, but that chapter, it's so typical, like just the story of the poor. How they put a lot of hope in winning the lottery, and that's why they buy the scratch-off tickets and play the Powerball and things like that, because they have these dreams of getting the house or, the car or whatever that they dream of. And so, that just reminds me of that. So this was the house Papa talked about when he held the lottery ticket. And this was the house Mama dreamed up in the story she told us before we went to bed. But the house on Mango Street is not the way they told it at all. It's small and red with tight steps in front and windows so small you'd think they were holding their breath. You hear that personification? Bricks are crumbling in places, and the front door is so swollen you have to push hard to get in. There's no front yard, only 4 little elms the city planted by the curb. Out back is a small garage for the car we don't own yet, and a small yard that looks smaller between the 2 buildings on either side. There are stairs in our house, but they're ordinary hallway stairs, and the house has only 1 washroom. Everybody has to share a bedroom. Mama and Papa, Carlos and Kiki, me and Nenny. Wow, so they have a house with only 1 bedroom that they all have to sleep in. And they still have to call out, when they're taking a bath, so no one barges in on them or something. Once, when we were living on Loomis, a nun from my school passed by and saw me playing out front. The laundromat downstairs had been boarded up because it had been robbed 2 days before. And the owner had painted on the wood, "Yes, we're open," so as not to lose business. "Where do you live?" she asked. there? I said, pointing up to the third floor. You live there? There. I had to look where she pointed. The third floor. The paint peeling, wooden bars Papa had nailed on the windows so we wouldn't fall out. You live there? The way she said it made me feel like nothing. There. I lived there. I nodded. I knew then I had to have a house, a real house, one I could point to. But this isn't it. The house on Mango Street isn't it. For the time being, Mama says. Temporary, says Papa. But I know how those things go. So that's, the end of story 1. And Esperanza remembers moving a lot. That's the one thing. She's moved so many times that she can't even remember all the places they've lived. She said that they moved every year, which is pretty crazy. So she never really had a firm ground on which to plant herself, from the start. She never had the surroundings where she had the ability to establish her self-identity, so it was pretty rocky from the start. A great change came when they actually owned a house, so that was a good thing. They didn't have to answer to anybody or, beg somebody else to fix something that was broken. If, they needed to take care of something in the house, they took care of it because they owned it. So it wasn't the house that they dreamed about, but at least they owned something. But Esperanza doesn't see it that way. And she knows from experience that, even though her parents are saying that it's temporary, they're going to move to a better house, they probably will never get the house that they're all dreaming about. The real house, that she wants to be able to point to and feel proud of. But, again, that's part of the journey. The second story is called Hairs. And to me, this is a chapter that's really about identity. Esperanza describes how everyone in the family has different types of hair. She especially likes her mom's hair, which smells like bread. And that pretty much represents a safe place for Esperanza. She feels safe around her mom. And she likes to snuggle up to her mom at night and smell her hair, which smells like bread. And again, that gives her peace, and that makes her feel safe. Then story 3 is titled Boys and Girls. And this chapter pretty much is a window into how males and females operate in her world. She says that they live in separate worlds. Go figure. Based on the social norms in her community, her brothers don't talk to her and her sister Nenny outside of the house. They have all this stuff that they want to say, in the house, but as soon as they step outside, it's like the rules change. So this is basically a prelude to some other examples of the male-dominated society that Esperanza lives in. Esperanza also mentions that Nenny, her younger sister, is her unwanted responsibility. She has to make sure that Nenny doesn't hang around the wrong people and doesn't get into trouble. Otherwise, Esperanza will get into trouble. So she doesn't see Nenny as a friend at all because she's too young. Esperanza wants someone her own age that she can relate to. So Nenny is not on Esperanza's level at all. Esperanza says that until she has a best friend, she is a red balloon, a balloon tied to an anchor. Now, why would she call herself a red balloon? Well, just, looking at symbolism, red is the color of defiance. Esperanza is destined to be a free spirit. She's not going to kind of melt into the background. That's not her personality. And as far as the balloon part, she's a dreamer. Her imagination floats. She's ready to float away to better places. And the part about the anchor, she's a red balloon tied to an anchor. The anchor is her neighborhood, and her circumstances that are holding her down. Again, she sees all these people in her community, the females, that are anchored down, that are stuck there, and she says that is not going to be her. And right now, in a smaller sense, in a more micro sense, the fact that she has to take care of her sister Nanny and watch over her all the time kind of limits her own activities. So Nanny is a little bit of an anchor for her right now too. Okay, story 4 is called My Name. And this is a pretty interesting chapter. It tells a lot about Esperanza and how she feels about herself just based on her name. It's very short, so I'll read it to you. In English, my name means hope. In Spanish, it means too many letters. It means sadness. It means waiting. It is like the number 9, a muddy color. It is the Mexican records my father plays on Sunday mornings when he is shaving. Songs like sobbing. So you can already see that Esperanza doesn't like her name very much. She relates it to a lot of sad things. I mean, she relates it to sadness itself, to crying. So you can see that she's not really accepted herself at this point. Whatever she is, she's not accepting of it. And you can see that in how she feels about her name. It was my great-grandmother's name, and now it is mine. She was a horsewoman, too, born like me in the Chinese year of the horse, which is supposed to be bad luck if you're born female. But I think this is a Chinese lie, because the Chinese, like the Mexicans, don't like their women strong. Some commentary there, huh? My great-grandmother, I would have liked to have known her, a wild horse of a woman, so wild she wouldn't marry, until my great-grandfather threw a sack over her head and carried her off. Just like that, as if she were a fancy chandelier. That's the way he did it. And the story goes, she never forgave him. She looked out the window her whole life, the way so many women sit their sadness on an elbow. I wonder if she made the best with what she got, or was she sorry because she couldn't be all the things she wanted to be? Esperanza. I have inherited her name, but I don't want to inherit her place by the window. So already you can see Esperanza's fighting against being powerless. She's fighting against this fate that she sees happening to a lot of women in her family and a lot of women in her neighborhood. So she is not going to be powerless. And at 12 years old, she's already deciding that. At school, they say my name funny, as if the syllables were made out of tin and hurt the roof of your mouth. So they say her name very sharp. Esperanza. In Spanish, it's supposed to be smoother. But in Spanish, my name is made out of a softer something, like silver. Not quite as thick as sister's name, Magdalena, which is uglier than mine. Magdalena, who at least can come home and become nanny. But I am always Esperanza. No nickname for Esperanza. I would like to baptize myself under a new name. A name more like the real me. The one nobody sees. Esperanza as Lisandra or Maritza or Zizi the X. Yes, something like Zizi the X will do. Isn't that a strong name? I mean, Lisandra is nice, Maritza is nice, Esperanza is nice, but Zizi the X, that's like very Amazonian, very strong. Reminds me of something like Xena, the Amazon princess or Amazon warrior or something like that. So, yeah, definitely we learn a lot about Esperanza from this story, My Name. So now we have story 5, which is titled Cathy, Queen of Cats. Now, Cathy pretty much is the neighborhood gossip. She tells Esperanza who's who in the neighborhood, and she tells her a little about each person's business as well. So whatever Cathy knows, she's gonna tell it. Cathy basically has tons of cats. I mean, there are cats all over her house and every place in the house. But Cathy says something very interesting. I don't even think she realizes the slight or the insult she was giving Esperanza. But yeah, sometimes people just don't think about who they're speaking to before they say certain things. So Cathy goes, "You want a friend?" she says. "Okay, I'll be your friend, but only until next Tuesday. That's when we move away. Got to. Then See, Esperanza notices this stuff. Then, as if she forgot I just moved in, she says the neighborhood is getting bad. So basically, it's a prejudicial comment. Some people may call it racist, but and I'm sure Cathy didn't just come up with this on her own. Her parents probably expressed this, and she developed that idea for herself as well. But the neighborhood is getting bad. Why? Because the Latinos are moving in. There's too many Latinos coming in here. We know about Latinos, right? Right? They're all dirty, and like 15 of them live in like one house, one small house. Yeah. How many times have I heard something like that? How many movies have we seen where they make comments like that? How many stories have we read? It's just general stereotypes. So there's one for every race. Cathy's father will have to fly to France one day and find her great distant grandcousin on her father's side and inherit the family house. How do I know this is so? She told me so. In the meantime, they'll just have to move a little farther north from Mango Street, a little farther away every time people like us keep moving in. Yeah, so there you have it. So hopefully you can kind of understand why Esperanza would write a vignette, about this girl Cathy. That's a pretty, I don't know, traumatic, maybe too strong of a word, but that stuff sticks with you. When someone makes a racial comment like that, just a general stereotype, and you fit in that category that they're talking about, that's so distasteful to them, that sticks with you. It really does. And again, that's something that's happened to me as well. But instead of just giving people a chance just to see how they are as individuals, as families, you see more and more of them moving in, so you have to move out to be amongst your own or whoever you believe to be in your class. But whatever, whatever. But I will say this, though. Even though stereotypes or generalizations, they don't apply to every single person that you try to stick that label on, but they do come from somewhere. They do come from somewhere. And again, every group has a stereotype attached to them. And that's all I'm going to say about that.